Today I want to share with you just a simple idea that's had a very profound effect in my life. And in fact, in a lot of ways, I think the success that I've had over the last 15 years is the result of manifesting this simple concept on a day-to-day basis, like really believing into it. Like I share in my story how ADHD used to be this limiting thing that I thought was my weakness that was holding me back from achieving my greatness. And that the game really changed when I turned that perspective, when I flipped the coin and I said, instead of ADHD being this thing for the reason why I cannot, I'm going to start looking at it as the reason why I can, as the justification for my greatness. And at the time, that was just kind of lunacy. I was living in the back of a van, guys. I had $80,000 in debt. I had terrible relationships. My fiance had just left me. And to think that, okay, this thing is now my strength was a little bit delusional in a way. But I had no other choice because I was at that place in my life where the beliefs that had gotten me to that place weren't serving me clearly, because otherwise I wouldn't have been at that rock bottom moment. And so the idea that I want to share with you is it's very simple. It's your beliefs are the chisel. Your actions are the hammer. Reality is the stone. So let's unpack this. I was looking at this sculpture recently called The Self-Made Man. It's a really beautiful sculpture. The idea is that there is this man emerging from the stone. The upper body of him is this beautifully fit, strong, muscular torso. He has a hammer, and his lower body is still encased in the stone, and he's chipping away at it. And the reason I was looking at this was because a couple months back, I was reading about Michelangelo. I read a biography about Michelangelo. And when Michelangelo was asked like how he had carved David, his response I think was really, really interesting. We did a podcast on this, but the response that he said was, it's simple. I just remove everything that isn't David. And this is the idea of like addition through subtraction, or via negativa, which comes to us from Nassim Taleb. So I encourage you to go check out those other podcasts that we did talking about that concept, because that's a very powerful idea. But it got me looking at sculptures and just like this amazing art form. And I stumbled across that Self-Made Man, and it reinforced for me this idea that your beliefs are the chisel. It's the thing that is going to allow you to carve into reality itself, reality being the stone. And what's interesting about this idea is that reality is hard, and a lot of people look at it as being like this immovable, unyielding force, and stone can be that, but with your chisel and with your actions as being the hammer, if you continually pound that chisel into the stone, eventually it will start to yield, it will start to give way, it will start to become a reflection of the thing that your effort, your will. And that's been the idea that's had such a fundamental change in my life, was realizing that reality is not the stagnant, static, immutable object, this thing that's just occurring, that my outcome or the reality of my situation in this moment is not fixed, that it is all malleable. It might be very, very hard. Like nobody's gonna sit here and tell you that carving into marble is gonna be easy, but it is possible. And just knowing that a thing is possible often changes the way that we approach the activity. For instance, if I was to give you a puzzle and it had 10,000 pieces, I don't give you the box, so you don't know what the image is. And I also tell you, hey, by the way, I don't know if all the pieces are here. You would likely give up very, very quickly on that puzzle. One, because you don't know what it's trying to build, and two, you don't even know if it's really possible. It's only the really crazy people who are going to stick it out all the way to the end to try and figure out if this thing is actually possible. Now, reverse that and say, okay, I give you the picture. You know what it's going to look like, and I tell you with absolute certainty all the pieces are here. Then you know what's possible. You know you could do this thing. It's just a matter of sitting down, applying, and you have the template. So it's just keep following the steps and you will get there, right? The two things, all that's really changed in the amount of effort that you're going to put in is your perception of if it is in fact possible. right? On the one hand, you don't know if the puzzle's possible. So like, what's the point of even putting in the time and the energy? You don't even know what it's making necessarily. So like, what's the gratification that you're getting out of this, right? And some people will pursue that, but most people will not. Whereas if you know what the image is going to be, and you know with certainty that it is possible, then you will pursue that with a different type of energy than you would in the first scenario. And this is important because, our beliefs become our thoughts, and our thoughts dictate our actions dictate our results. And if you believe that something's possible, then the way that you think about it, how you then inform your actions towards it, are going to be fundamentally different, which then leads to a higher probability of succeeding at that thing. Whereas if you don't believe it is possible, then you're not going to think that your actions are going to matter. And so the actions that you take are probably going to reinforce the fact that it's not possible. And therefore your results are going to suffer as an extension. And so this idea that your beliefs are the chisel, your actions are the hammer, and that reality is the stone, I think is a beautiful way of conceptualizing the fact that you have a lot of control over who you are becoming in this world that you're trying to build for yourself. And that it's just a matter of first starting with the tool that is your beliefs, the chisel, and then applying actions consistently over a long enough period of time to be able to start to see reality bend to your will. And the really fascinating thing here, people, is that the people in this world who have succeeded in like fundamentally changing our reality, like the ones who dreamed something into existence that nobody else saw before, it came not because the world was like, yes, that's totally possible. It was because they looked at it and they said, I believe it's possible. And then they took the actions that eventually made it that. You don't have to look very far to see examples of this. Steve Jobs, I think, is a very interesting person who people, when they talk about Steve Jobs, they refer to him as having like this reality distortion machine, like this ability to distort reality around him. And that was, it's a trait that you see over and over in people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and like Jeff Bezos, people who just kind of like bent reality to their will. And the truth is, it's not a superpower reserved to the 1%. It's a power that's available to all of us. It's just that they applied it at such a grander scale than most of us ever think to do or believe that we can do. And so I share this with you because for me, this one idea was very fundamental in like changing the trajectory of my life and starting to understand that I had far more control over this reality I'd created for myself than I had initially believed. So I leave you with this. Your beliefs are the chisel. Your actions are the hammer, and reality is the stone. So the question is then, what are you going to go create? I hope this brought you a little bit of value. I look forward to seeing you back around these parts tomorrow, but until then, stay hyper-focused, my friend.